Yes, hello class. I decided to come up with these guidelines to help with your research methods or the dissertation module that is upcoming. You're supposed to do it over 2 trimesters or 3, but at least it should be ready by your 3rd trimester. Research and dissertation and research is an important module because it exposes you to legal research skills which you can use later on when you're a consultant, when you're doing your legal work. So it is very important. But I decided to come up with these guidelines so that you can use them, and then next week or when we meet, we allocate supervisors and you can start working hand in hand with your supervisor. You've already done your research methodology class, which you should have done, or at least you did it. It exposes you to what research is, how research is done, and all that. I'm not going to get into that. You should be able to remember that on your own. Or if not, I'll give you some guidelines. I'll actually share the guidelines with you. So it's a compulsory module for you, because we believe right now it is compulsory. For us, by the time we were studying, it was optional, but now even at LDC people do research, so it is becoming an important aspect of your practice. So the School of Law set this up so that you can develop your topics, carry out your research, do your work with your supervisors, edit, do all those things within time. And I want us, especially those who are going to graduate, to do this within time, and you can be free after. So I wanted to lay down some of the schedules that I want us to move by. I want us to register or to come up with topics as soon as possible. You'll select your topics. Out of those topics, we're going to be able to allocate you supervisors. So if you choose a topic in human rights, in intellectual property, in labor law, in criminal law, in tort, whatever the case might be, get an interesting topic, and we are going to allocate for you supervisors. This is acting as an introductory class, but you will have a session with your supervisors. Then, next you're going to draft a proposal. You're going to come up with a proposal of about 4 to 6, 8 pages. The proposal, remember what you learned in your research methodology. That is what you're going to do. You come up with a proposal which shows your topic, introduction, background, problem statement, significance of the study, research objectives, the questions you're going to ask, your conceptual framework, your methodology, how you're going to find out, how you're going to carry out your research, and the literature review. It can even include the hypothesis. You remember those things in social research methodology. Yes. So you're going to come up with a proposal which you're going to submit. This is something you should do in a maximum of 2 weeks, but as early as possible. Now, your proposals are going to be reviewed by your supervisor, who will be appointed to you. So the supervisor will look at your proposal, see if it makes sense, if it's a legal question, if it's something which is researchable, if it is justifiable, and then he will give you comments back. When he gives you that comment, the next thing you're going to start now working on your research, and you'll go on and carry out your study. Then all this will be in line with the supervisor. If it says to move it chapter by chapter, you will move chapter by chapter. If it tells you to do everything and submit, it will depend on the supervisor, but it's better you move chapter by chapter. So you have chapter 1, chapter 2, chapter 3, chapter 4, or chapter 5 if you've gone to chapter 5. Then this will be reviewed, and there are going to be timelines. And after that, you're going to have your final draft. After your final draft, you're going to submit this final research, and it will be submitted for marking at the time. So I hope that is clear. The submission, we should have a maximum submission time, and I'm hoping those who want to graduate, the 4.2s, I would prefer we do this early, but I would really recommend that by July, August, really July, latest August, your supervision should be done, your research should be complete. So that we don't want to struggle so much up to the end. The good news is that we've proposed to extend the graduation date to October, so that we now start having graduation in October, so that those people who start in September, you can graduate when your 4 years have ended. You get it? So the class of the 4.2s, you joined in September 2021, you're supposed to graduate after September 2021. If you graduate before, that will be short of the National Council expectations. So graduation will be tentatively in October. Yeah. And that is how it will be when you've just about finished your 4 years in School of Law. Yeah. So what we're going to do is evaluate. The things we are going to look at is to evaluate your topic. We're going to evaluate your proposal. We're also going to evaluate your literature review. Literature review, we shall go through it later on. But the books and articles which you've researched on and what you're going to consider, we're going to look at that. Yeah. The format of your submission, your proposal should not be more than, it should be at least 2,500 words, about 5 to 6 pages. That is for including footnotes and bibliography. Then, but this should be submitted to the supervisor. I think we can use soft copy for now because there's no need to submit them in hard, but we shall see. They should really be in soft copy. And we shall make it in such a way that you can submit them online and you get your comments back online using the portal. Yeah. And then later on, you'll submit the final position. So I'd expect it to be in those aspects, very many assessments, but when we are looking at your proposal. Then your dissertation, your full dissertation should be about 10,000 maximum. Don't go past 15,000 words, but it should be 10,000 words. It should be about 10,000 to 15,000 words. At the end of it, you'll be able to calculate how many words you've used, but it should be about 10,000 to 14,000 words, let's say. Yeah, and this should be submitted both in hard and soft copy. Although I think it should really be in soft copy, there is no need of torturing the trees, but we shall see when we reach that bridge. Yes, but have it both. The next thing I need to tell you about is how to assess. How do we assess how are we going to assess your dissertation? The whole thing is with the supervisor. He's going to look at it within the limits that you're going to do the work. They're going to look at your research paper. They're going to look at your proposal, your topic, your proposal, how you written the proposal. Then they shall grade everything, including the grammar, the work that has been done, the legal thought, the assessment, the authorities, even including neatness of the binding. How nice does your work look? Have you followed the right font, spacing, and all those things? We shall provide you with a form. There'll be a form later on where the supervisor will fill, and we shall show you what is going to be looked at for assessment. But mainly, both the proposal and final dissertation are assessed for identifying a statement of the problem statement, 5%, identifying the issues that arise out of it, articulating your hypothesis or your arguments, 10%, identifying and articulating the theoretical framework under which you're working. I'll come to that later on. Then that provides for 30% in the proposal. Then familiarity with the literature on the subject. You must have carried out literature review to take 20%. Originality of the idea and contribution to knowledge in that area will also add about 10%. You have to come up with an idea. I saw someone, I think Moses, coming up with a topic on arbitration. It has to be something. Don't just get any topic. Like assessing the right of women, right of education of women. It can't be that simple. Everyone has many people have written about that. There has to be something special about your topic. If you add like maybe a right of women in internally displaced camps or in jail, something, make it more relevant to the current situations. Yeah. Then we'll also assess how thorough are your citations. how have you presented your work? How have you typed errors, proper subdivisions, the subheadings and all that, clarity in expression, compliance with the word limit, all that will provide 10%. Then also, they'll also assess your conduct during the preparation of the project paper. You know how you were consulting the supervisor, how independent your research is. Those of you who think you're going to use AI and tell it to come up with a topic and do your work, all that is going to be marked. If you do not have original work, if you have AI generated work which you've just copied and pasted, all that will be tested for its originality. Yeah. Then, of course, submission on time and word count, all those will account for the 40%. So this makes 100%. Yeah. So for the methodology, the teaching part, we do not normally teach dissertation writing, but the supervisor is allocated to you and he or she guides you as you're doing your supervision. So and guidance is everything. When you bring your topic and you say an assessment of why I don't know what example I would give. An assessment of why there are very few trees in Uganda. That is not your supervisor will tell you that's not a legal research topic. That's a topic for someone doing environmental sciences or something. Your topic should be more of a legal question. So they will guide you. Then they'll go to the next part, the introduction. We'll come to all that. But the supervisor guides you all through. So it is not taught. You do as you're learning, kind of. Yeah. Now, an important thing, which I cannot stress, plagiarism. Plagiarism, ensure that you follow the University Code of Academic Integrity, honesty. Do not plagiarize work. Do not think that you're going to get someone else's dissertation from KIU or wherever and submit it, unless it is not online. Do not think you're going to just copy and paste people's work, things in your work. Avoid plagiarism. If you're doing any direct quotations, quoting directly, you must identify. You should put quotation marks, and you show that you're putting quotation marks, or you should put it indented so that it shows that those are not your words. If you're saying, if you get something from a book and you say Professor Oloko Onyango said this, or the judge said this, those are not your words. You put them in quotes, direct quoting. If you're not going to do that, you're going to paraphrase your work. Paraphrasing your work means you get a prompt, you find the work and then put it in kind of your own words. You paraphrase it. So don't copy and paste. This works even for acts. Don't just go and copy section 188 of the penal code and copy and paste it there. You can paraphrase it and say that maybe section 188 provides for this and this. You get it? Then, if you have borrowed facts or information that is borrowed, which is not common knowledge, something that is got from anywhere, all that must be acknowledged by a footnote. Your supervisor will be tough on that. You can't just say, in Uganda, there are 50 courts, and each court is handling about 5,000 cases. Where have you got that information from? If it is your work which you found, it can be fine. Show it from your study, from your results. But if you're getting it from what someone else has published, some secondary source of information, you must footnote it. But according to the report of JELOS, this is the situation of courts in Uganda, and you put a footnote, and also in the bibliography. I hope that is clear. Yeah. Then we now go to the proposal writing. Your proposal is going to have a title page which shows your topic, your name, the year, student number, and the purpose of your research. In partial fulfillment of you'll see it. Then your next page is the table of contents, and then you're going to have the background, statement of the problem, justification of the study, The objectives, they should be 3 to 5, maximum 5. The research questions which flow from the objectives, theoretical framework, research methodology, literature review, limitations or challenges, limitations of your research, hypothesis, then dissemination, it depends on the supervisor, and then the chapter breakdown. Your proposal is going to show the chapter, which chapter is going to have what. Then you're going to have the timeline or duration of your research, how long it will take. This time it should all take maximum of 2 months. Then you should have a bibliography. That is in your proposal. I hope that is clear. Yeah. Now, how do you plan your proposal? Once your title or topic has been, you've got it and you've discussed it with your supervisor, you need to get some time to think and plan for a proposal. Try to identify how you're going to do this, a problem, where you're going to get your information from. Come up with all that stuff so that you can plan your work well. How are you going to analyze data? Where are you going to go? If you come up with a topic and you say your analysis of how family matters are handled in Wundiwujo, that means you're going to plan to go to Wundiwujo, you're going to go to the court maybe at Fort Portal or the magistrate's court in Wundiwujo. You have to plan all that. The title of your proposal is what you intend to call your dissertation. So your dissertation will flow from your title. Yeah. That's how so you should put them in numbered, 1.1 introduction, 1.2 background, 1.3 like that. You flow like that. And I hope that is it. Now, what may be important is choice of a topic. Right now you've done almost 32 to 30 something modules, many of which are low. Of course, you have communication skills and ICT, but you can decide to undertake this dissertation research in any topic that has interested you. Anything. There are various options which you should have thought about anyway by third year, but you can now start thinking about them now. What has interested you? You've done all this. You remember the modules, even introducing law, criminal law, constitutional history, contract law, constitutional principles, constitutional law 2, legal methods, family law, administrative law, equity and trusts, torts law, foundations of land law, land transactions, negligence, family law 2, admin law 2, jurisprudence 1. All the modules you've done. All there you can get a topic if it is you see that it's important to you. But think about an area which interests you. Do research which you're interested in. Why should you be a Muslim and you research on Christian marriages unless you're doing a comparison? Or why would you be a Christian and you're researching on Muslim marriages and their relevance, so applicability in Uganda? Why? Do something that interests you, that you can be attached to. Yeah. Then you can approach your lecturers who have taught different areas of law and see what they think. Your lecturers are all available. You can get your lecturer and say, I was thinking, what kind of topic can I come up with in equity and trusts? It's a rare thing. I don't know, what should I come up with? What do you think? You can discuss with them, see the areas that interested you and how they can guide you to. Yeah. Then look through the list of the research areas, all those, and then see what you can do. Then you can, as you're preparing, you can speak to people in different industries to see what it is. You can go to an NGO doing environmental law and see what's an interesting thing you can deal with. You can go to communications house and deal with someone doing communications, UCC, and you want to see something there. You can go to the DPP's office or wherever in a law firm. Yeah, so you can look at people in industries. You can go to a police station and get ideas of what you can do. Yeah. Look at what are the biggest challenges, legal challenges that are being faced by that institution. Are there any areas of law that need to be explored? Are they new? Is that institution willing to allow you to carry out that research? Are there areas of the law that are important? You can be sharp and you come up to analyze the operation of Interpol. And then you try to go to Interpol, see if you get that information, if you can carry out that research, and you want to look at the legality of red notices, issuance of red notices by Interpol. Whatever the case, look at anything that interests you. Okay, but always get it something that is within your area of interest. Okay, those are 20 minutes. Now, I want to now kind of guide you on how your research should look. Yeah. First is the title. The first sheet should have your title, which should be, in order for you to choose, it should be something that reflects your question. What do you want your title to be? I'll give an example. For example, if you've done criminal law, you may want to look at self-defense, the right to self-defense. So your question is there a right to self-defense in Uganda? And then then you can ask your second question. If someone attacks a Ugandan and does certain things, and this person responds in a certain way, what laws govern that conduct? So you're trying to look around self-defense. Okay, so your title, for example, could be the right to self-defense following attacks by police. And your question is, if I'm attacked by a policeman in my house, do I have a right to self-defense? When does it apply? How much force can it be? So you can say, you can come up with a topic. This is just for example, the right to self-defense following attacks by unidentified, or by policemen, or by state actors. A case study of this, you can have a case study. I recently had a case in Mubende where drunk policemen went to someone's house and attacked him, fired shots in the house, and then broke into the house. These people were hiding under the bed. When they came out, they overpowered the policemen because they were drunk, beat them, even cut their hands. Now, did it amount to self-defense? Was it a criminal offense? What happened? Because these people were being charged with attempted murder, is it this, and many other offenses. So does it amount to self-defense? So you'll have that kind of title. That's just an example. If you want in environmental law and you're looking at environmental impact assessments, your question will be, how effective are environmental assessments in protecting wetlands in Uganda? A case study of maybe Kawempe, wherever, Munyonyo, whatever the case may be. Yeah. So the next thing after your title, you will have your table of contents. Your table of contents will have the background, statement, problem, all those things in their order. Yeah. Then next, you're supposed to have, this is for your dissertation, you're supposed to have a table of cases, statutes, and acronyms. You should have your cases listed. Your supervisor will show you how to do it, but just quickly, when you're doing your work in Microsoft Word, when you put a case, you go on top to where there is references. I don't know if I taught you that. Where there is references, then you'll see there is insert index, insert authority, list of authorities. You can select that case and make it an authority, so that at the end you'll just add it to that part. It will bring all the cases you put in your work in one place. Yeah. Although with AI now, if you've paid for AI, you can tell it to look at your work and extract the authorities for you. Also possible. Yeah. So you have a table of cases. Yeah. So after that, you have your introduction or background. Introduction or background, you can have an introduction and a background, or you can have them both. The proposal, depends on how you want to take it, but the introduction introduces us to your topic. It sets the broad outlay of it has to be something catchy which introduces us to your topic. or your area of research. And it is not usually long. It's normally one, maximum two paragraphs or three short paragraphs, which just gives us an introduction to what's happening. So, for example, if you want to talk about divorce, you can start by talking about in Uganda today, the number of divorce cases has risen, and most courts are averaging 1,000 divorces per year. And maybe there are various laws that have evolved over time to govern the divorce relationship or the divorce situation, and these provide different type of remedies or procedures, something like that. It depends on what you want. So if your topic was to analyze, for example, matrimonial property during divorce, you can start your introduction by saying the issue of matrimonial property after divorce has been a contentious issue in Uganda for a period of time. The law has oscillated between whether there is an absolute right to 50% share or not, and recent judgments have pronounced themselves on it. It's kind of an introduction. You get it? So that you catch us to say, where is this person coming from with his topic? Then you can now have a background. The background will now give us the whole background where things started. The background is like a short history to your issue. So if your introduction was about, let's say, the divorce, you can give a background and you say, in Uganda, maybe with the coming of the colonialists and the introduction of Christianity, the issue of marriage and divorce became contentious because religion preaches non-separation after marriage, whereas this, then there were various decisions by courts, including the case maybe of Rex versus Amkeo, which suggested that a woman is not a person's property, and the parties have rights and all that. You can have that discussion. Then after that, there was the case of this happened maybe in Alai versus Uganda. Court recognized the various types of marriages, which meant that there were different types of scenarios for divorce and all that. After that, very many cases came up in Uganda where the divorce was handled. In most cases, property was being shared 50%. Matrimonial property was defined like this and like that. However, recently, the Court of Appeal held that at divorce, there is no automatic right to 50%, and these cases have come up. There have been two various cases which have handled that, including the recent case where X versus Y, where a woman was actually given only curtains after the divorce. So this brings into contention, what are the rights in property after divorce? So you've given your background, where it all started, came from, how it was before, and our current situation. You see that? After that, you now get the statement of the problem. So the statement of the problem is supposed to arise from your introduction and your background. So it will show you that from that background, you say that the problem that arises is whether parties during divorce have a right to 50% share, whether it depending on how you're choosing it. So that would be the problem that arises. And whether a person can lawfully claim for 50% share without showing, or if you're on the other side, you can say whether it contravenes the law to deny a person 50% share, especially a woman, when she has been in a household during a marriage for over a certain period of time, things like that. You can come with a problem. Let's say if you're talking about the other self-defense example, you can say the problem that arises is the right to self-defense may be lawfully exercised in an event of an attack by an armed person. In other words, the problem is whether and to what extent may a person be held responsible in both domestic and international law for reacting in self-defense when attacked by an armed state or non-state actor, something like that. So it arises out of your problem. The next thing is the justification. You have to justify your study. You explain to us, to your supervisor, why you picked the topic to research on it. Why is it of an interest to you? For example, it's just a paragraph. You can say, this study is justified on the basis that although there is a lot of literature on divorce and very many cases have been decided, the recent decision by the Court of Appeal makes it contentious in terms of rights, in terms of whatever you're choosing to say. And there is an apparent scarcity, or there's an apparent increase now in divorce cases by men, now that they're sure that women won't take 50% of their property, something like that. Then you justify it. It is so this problem that exists right now it's important for you to study it, so that you will come up with a final position. Yes. Then you're going to have objectives. Objectives, you itemize the objectives of your research. What do you want to do in your research? You can have a main objective and specific objectives. The main objective of your research may be to analyze the divorce law in Uganda, but then the specific objective is to ask what is the law governing, what's the legal policy framework on divorce in Uganda, what are the recent changes in divorce law, property rights, what amounts to property under matrimonial property under divorce, what recommendations can be made, and things like that. So these are objectives you're going to come up with. However, when you're listing them, you number them 1, 2, 3, 4. Why you number them 1, 2, 3, 4 is when you go to the next part of our work, which is the research questions. Your questions come out of your objectives. So the question 1 should be like objective 1. If you say that your objective is to analyze the legal policy framework on divorce, your research question should be, what is the legal policy framework on divorce in Uganda? If your next objective was to analyze how court has applied matrimonial property in divorce cases, your question will be, what amounts to matrimonial property in Uganda? Your third one, if there are recommendations, your objective is to find recommendations. What recommendations can be made, and then conclusions. So those will be your research questions. I hope you are together so far. Next, you will have the hypothesis. The hypothesis is you kind of have a presumed answer that you make before conducting a research, and it is normally a law-based solution to the research. Because for us it's legal research, your hypothesis is normally a law-based solution to the research question that you have above. Even if you only have one research question, you can have more than one hypothesis. So you can say your hypothesis is, if for example, in the scenario, if you are using divorce, you can say this research proceeds on the presumption that guaranteeing 50% share of property after divorce ensures that women's right to property is protected. So that is your hypothesis. Your hypothesis is that maybe that enforcing the 50% will prevent divorces going on. Or it can be that your hypothesis is that ever since they took away the 50%, divorce cases have increased. So that is your hypothesis. In the case of the self-defense, you can say the hypothesis is that the inherent right to self-defense is exercised only when an armed attack occurs against one state by another state, something like that. But it is your assumption, it is your presumption before you start. So we want to know what you were thinking when you are starting this research. Now, the confusing part, which makes our research different from social research, is when you come to the theoretical or conceptual framework. The theoretical conceptual framework, you have different opinions on the differences between, most times there's a difference between what is a conceptual or theoretical framework. So sometimes you can have both of them, or you can have one of them. It depends on how you, but at least you must have one. It depends on the supervisor. Supervisor will guide you on your work. However, what is important is that here we want to look at, you did your jurisprudence. We want to look at the jurisprudential basis of your research. Remember the things we did? You did natural theory of law, positivist, sociological school of law, Marxism, all those things you did, rational school, the rationalists, all that stuff. Your research must be falling somewhere in there, and you have to show it. So, will you prefer, for example, Thomas Hobbes' idea, or are you going to take Jeremy Bentham's idea? I don't know if you remember what these things are. Sociological school, natural school of law, what are you taking? What informs your choice in selecting this theory of school of law? That is your theoretical framework. Why did you choose that? You may use schools of thought from different other disciplines, especially today. Research is a bit multidisciplinary. You can decide to look at your research from different angles, but it is important that you choose something so that you see where you are. If you are talking about abortion in Uganda, are you going to take the natural school of law thought, or are you going to take the positive one? Are you going to argue that babies come from God naturally and all those things by nature? We shouldn't fight what God has given us. That school of thought of the Aquinas and all that. Are you going to take that natural school of law? Or are you going to come to the positivist and you say, according to positivism, when there is a law, you must follow that law, and all those things that are there. And then you say that since the law is clear that there is no abortion, there should be no abortion. Are you going to be a rationalist? And then you will say rationalism looks at the law and how it operates in society, the reasons for the judgment, the reasons for the law, and in this case, maybe abortion was to prevent children from whatever reason, and you go to the case of Roe versus Wade, and you now justify and you say you can look at the situation and decide whether an abortion is right or wrong. You know the difference. So when you come to naturalists, you say things should apply naturally. When you come to the positivists, they say apply the law as it is. You go to the rationalists, they'll say look at the situation and decide, should abortion be restricted in all situations? Should it be allowed in other situations? Then you come up with. So that is your theoretical framework. Also the Marxism and the historical, whichever the case might be. Yeah, you can be looking at land wrangles, and you have to choose. You may decide to choose a historical school of thought, and you look at you assess how the law was before the whites came, how it became, how the Milo land came, these issues came, how we got different 4 tenures, and then you're explaining why we have Buganda certificates of land. Why? Why should Uganda be different from other countries? Why is it that you have Milo tenure in Uganda, not anywhere else? So you'll give the historical background. So why it is important. We can't get rid of Milo tenures. We can't get rid of Milo land. It is here. But why? So you take that historical aspect. Have you got it? I hope. Yeah. So an example is, you can say, among other theories of law, this paper is centered on the positivist approach, and it is concerned with viewing events as they have occurred and discussing actual problems that have arisen in the field of maybe attacks by non-state actors, or maybe divorce in Christian marriages, something like that, under both domestic and international law. The reason, then you give the reason. The reasoning for adopting the positivist research, for example, or approach to the exclusion of natural law lies in the fact that this research paper is focused on the principles formulated under international law, or principles formulated under the Constitution. Remember, natural law doesn't say, it says it shouldn't be written. Written law is positive law. So we are looking at that mainly. This paper is focused on looking at the written law as it is, and is not concerned with the morality of the actions of the state actors. You get it? So now you're approaching you're using a positivist approach to answer the question. So I'll give you an example. If you decide to research on Semakade and the red notices issued by Interpol, are you going to get the positivist approach? Are you going to go the natural one? What are you going to? Are you looking at rationalism? What are you looking at? Are you looking at the Marxist, who say that law oppresses people? What approach are you going to get? Are you going to look at the law as it is? Are you going to analyze the situation as it is and get solutions? Yeah, because the other one will say, when an arrest warrant has been issued, it is given to Interpol. Interpol issues a red notice. It goes to all countries. The country in which that person is, he's arrested, is brought back to Uganda. And that's the law. Then what happens? So what happens how are you going to add situations of morality? What happened before? You'll say in this situation, we had to solve fight with Sekana, all these moralities, all those things. Which approach are you going to adopt? So I'll give you a sample of all that. Yes. So after the theoretical framework, you now go to the research methodology. These are 40 minutes. Research methodology. You can have either qualitative or quantitative research. You've learned that. So this is going to explain what you want to do. Are you going to do one? Are you going to use one or the other? Are you going to use both? And if you so, why? Are you going to use qualitative research? If so, why? Or quantitative, if so, why? You also need to explain why you will not use it. And if you choose not to use the qualitative, you explain why. We shall not adopt this one because of this reason. You cannot make the argument that you don't have time or financial resources. That's why I've decided not to do qualitative. You have to have a proper reason. Yeah, a reason for limiting your research, because everyone has that limitation of time. But we want you to choose. Why did you decide, if you wanted to analyze the lives of prisoners in Uganda, why didn't you go to Luzira and carry out qualitative study by looking at each prisoner or group of prisoners? Why did you choose a qualitative one and just, why did you choose that option? Or the other way around, you'll explain, I chose a qualitative one and I excluded the quantitative because qualitative would give me exact information from each person who has suffered. You get it? And things like that. So you'll explain, you have the various methods of research. So how are you going to do it? Are you going to use library research? Are you going to use interviews? Are you going to use questionnaires? Are you going to use observation? Are you going to use all of them? You explain why. For example, you can't say that you want to analyze court backlog in Uganda by observation. What are you going to do? Are you going to go to court, sit and see how court cases are being handled to analyze the backlog? If you want to analyze how election cases have been decided over time in Uganda and your analysis is on that, are you going to use observation? No, you will have to get proper research. You're going to carry out laboratory research. You're going to do real empirical research. You're going to look at decisions, court decisions, to make your decision. You get it? So you have to explain why. There are certain things you can't interview to get information. Yeah. So you may want to come up with how court-martial and all that. Then if you come up and say that you want to use interviewing methods to understand why court-martial makes decisions the way it does, you're going to go to court, because it means when you come up with the interview, you have to come up with the questions you're going to ask, questionnaires. You're going to say you're going to the court-martial in Machinde, see the judge advocate, ask him, why is this like this? Why is this like? You think you'll get answers? Will it be justifiable? Most probably you're going to have a reasoning based on library research and of cases. You analyze trends and things like that. So you have to know which method you're going to be using. Is that clear? It is very important to choose the right research methodology based on the research questions that you have, so that, and your supervisor will ask you whether this methodology can answer the other one. Okay, so the next part is literature review. After your research methodology, you have to look at works of other researchers in that area. Of course, these days people keep calling. They say why, but You're not inventing the wheel. So you have to look at the research of other people in that area and see where your research becomes important. What's your niche? Yeah? What do you bring to the table? So if Professor Loka wrote about constitutionalism in 1996, Dr. Noria wrote about it in 2000, Dr. Kapumba wrote about it in 2012, Dr. Bazira wrote about it in 2014, like that. You're looking at their works. There are different works there. Now, for you, you want to write about it now. What is special about your work? What you know how they ask that question? What do you bring to the table? What do you bring to the table? So if it's about election violence, it's about what are you bringing to the table now? So you'll say something like, although there's a lot of literature on this subject and on divorces generally, there is an apparent scarcity regarding this. Maybe if the cases have written about matrimonial property, you might say there's little information on family businesses, let's say, for example. So that's where you want to question that one. Then you're going to show now how other scholars have written. You'll say, for example, Christopher Mbazira undertook a study and found this and this and this. Then you'll show, does your study agree with him? Is it improving him? Is it critiquing him? So you can say, for him, he studied divorce laws, but his study was in Kampala. So it did not cater for people who are up country and all that. My research, which is being carried out in Kakabera Maido, will look at more interesting features based on the circumstances there. And I expect to get new information, something like that. So that is how your literature review is. Normally, I advise you to have at least minimum, at least review 5 books, articles, and you have to be in order. You have books, articles, then these other publications, journals and all that. journals and all that. You should have at least those ones to review. Yeah. Then you can have a section which has limitations, kind of the constraints. You kind of show what things do you think are going to limit your work. Are they going to be the result of the way you choose your study? Is it the way you designed your study? You explain so that the person knows that before you criticize my work, these are my limitations. For example, you might say you're carrying out work with court martial, and you immediately limit and you say that this paper is limited to this type of decisions. Or you have a certain strong political opinion. You show your limits, things which you're kind of trying to shoot down people who are going to criticize you before they criticize you. Yeah, sometimes there are personal obstacles for the researcher where you can't undertake a biased study. For example, you're a Muslim and you're trying to analyze the law restricting sale of pork in public supermarkets. This, you're going to be biased definitely, even if the law is weak. The law is a bit, you'll say it is very weak. It's very weak. So you kind of you show your limitations, things that affected how you're deciding something. You may be studying on terrorism and punishment for terrorists and all that, and then you know very well that most of the terrorists have been from a certain side, and you're on that side. So somehow you'll be kind of affected by the decision, the things you're making. Even when you're making recommendations, you're like, and I'm saying that, for example, there should be more screening at the airport for people coming who have Arab origin, if you're an Arab or you have Arab ties. So you have to show all those things. So you can try to show that this paper, your research, its limits is limited to a certain aspect. The study will be limited to this and that. You explain it why, and you show what you expect to affect your research. Even you can put money and things like that. So next, you have to put the chapter breakdown. I want you to show your supervisor how is your chapter. So chapter 1 is always the introduction, which is your proposal. It turns into your chapter 1 introduction. Chapter 2 can be your theoretical framework, or it can be legal policy and institutional framework, whatever it may choose. Chapter 3 will be your case study. If you try to do your work at court and what you do your case study and what you found. Then chapter 4 is the recommendation and conclusion. So or if you have any other chapter in between, maybe a comparison, whatever, you put them in there, but you show your chapterization and you expect that's how they're going to be. Your chapter breakdown has to be, you have to be showing that this section will do this section will do that, this section will do that, Yeah. So that is mainly it. Then of course the timeline should work with your supervisor, but I've told you whatever the case may be, your timeline should make sure that by July, latest August, you have finished your work. Yeah. So that is it. So after this, I strongly advise that you develop your research topics. And actually submit them by Friday in 1 week's time. You submit them for consideration and allocation of supervisors. Then after that, you're going to be moving with your supervisors. Whoever doesn't move with the supervisor, whoever doesn't finish the dissertation, will have a module pending, won't be able to graduate. We'll be waiting for next year. That's just it. So if there are any questions, we can now discuss them maybe on the group. Yeah. And that's all from me. I've tried to be as brief as possible. I may have been fast, but it is a recording, so you can always pause and play back wherever. Yeah. But ask any questions, we can discuss them in the class. Thank you.